Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Utterly Unscripted. Today, I'm joined by. Uh, sorry, I'll just do that again. I'm really sorry. I wanted to say who you were. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Utterly Unscripted. Today, I'm joined by Isaiah, and he is joining us from the United States. It's a very early morning. Good morning to you, Isaiah. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
My pleasure. Would you mind just introducing yourself to the audience and letting us know who you are? Because you have got some really interesting topics that I want to talk to you about. And I think our audience is going to get something really valuable from it.
Yeah. So, like you said, my name is Isaiah Cruz. I'm a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner specialized in addiction medicine. So,
Hmm.
for the last 6 years, I've been doing addiction medicine, anything from opiate and heroin addiction, cocaine addiction, food addictions. Most recently, I'm doing alcohol and pornography addiction. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about a little bit today is pornography addiction, the silent epidemic. And
Yeah.
um, some of the statistics are staggering. In
Wow.
the United States, 91% of men have watched pornography in the last 30 days.
Okay. I guess, first of all, this was really interesting to me. That is what drew me to you to invite you onto the show. Um, how first do we identify an addiction? Because obviously watching pornography one time is not going to be an addiction, is it?
Well,
But when does an addiction become an addiction, and does addiction to, say, pornography equate to the same thing as being, say, addicted to meth or heroin and things like that? Is it the same things going on in your brain?
yeah, good question. So, whether when it becomes addiction is kind of how you define an addiction. And
Right.
I define an addiction as doing something that's harmful to you, wanting to stop, and continuing to do it.
Okay. So
If you
there's a
use that,
desire to not do it anymore.
yeah, a desire to stop, knowing that it's hurting you.
Right.
Knowing that is hurting your intimacy, hurting, or even just being ashamed of it. Like, what
Right.
happens if my family catches me, or
Oh,
my faith-based community, or whoever that you might be embarrassed, and like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this.
yeah,
Uh,
right. Yeah.
so, yeah, a desire to quit, knowing that it's harming you, and continuing to do it. If you use that definition, it's kind of easy to identify that the addiction. Now,
For sure.
more more of the, I guess, severe addictions, you're going to get into anxiety, intrusive thoughts. Can't wait to be alone. When you're in a
Oh,
social
wow.
event, like I'm at a party or social event where I'm supposed to be having fun, but all I can think about is I can't wait to get home and get in front of my computer.
That's
Um,
amazing that there are people who are experiencing. I actually had no idea that this was well, you said, what did you say? It was the silent and
Silent
endemic
epidemic. Yeah.
epidemic? Yeah. I never knew that is a thing that people are, like, busting to get to. Like, to me, it's such I'm not putting any judgment on anybody. I don't see the attraction to it.
Right.
For
Yeah.
me, I've always been sort of taught that pornography in particular is really degrading.
Yeah.
It's you're watching somebody's child, on film, and in not very pretty circumstances. I will put my hand up and say, of course I have looked at porn.
Mhm.
Um, and I think someone who says that they haven't is probably lying, because we are exposed to it pretty much everywhere, really. But I had no idea that people are at a point where they are almost like sweaty palms to get there. And oh, that was a really bad analogy, actually. But like sweaty palms to get back to watching it. I had no idea. Um, that's that's amazing, and it is harmful because of what? Why is it, apart from the shame-based things, what does pornography addiction do to you?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, kind of playing off what you just said, as far as other addictions, anytime anybody's addicted to anything, food, sex,
Mhm.
drugs, gambling, whatever it is, every time they do that activity, their brain releases dopamine, which is the feel good
Aha.
neurotransmitter.
Right.
So, and then every time dopamine's released, your brain creates a new pathway to think about doing that activity again because it liked it. You do
Okay.
that thousands and thousands of times, that's all the person can think about. And it
Right.
kind of goes back to Pavlov's dog. When I get stressed, I think about porn. When I'm happy, I think about porn. When I'm mad, I
Okay.
think about porn.
Yeah.
When I'm lonely, I think about porn. And then habit. Every time I get off of work, that's what I do. Before you know it, that's what you're doing right after work. And
Mm,
then
mm.
so it's just, and then brain images, MRIs, CAT scan of the brain, CAT scan of an addict's brain, and CAT scan of a brain, they physically look different. That repeated exposure to dopamine physically changes the pathways in your brain. So
Wow.
much so that it's comparable to a cocaine addict. Those same exact changes in the nucleus accumbens, in the prefrontal cortex, those same changes that happen. So chronic addiction or chronic pornography use changes, it lowers your executive functioning. So it lowers your decision making skills, and
Oh.
it increases anxiety, increases depression, causes social isolation, decreases intimacy.
Right.
You start viewing your partners as objects, and can cause
Mm.
pre- premature ejaculation, can cause erectile dysfunction, and it causes
Right.
downregulation of dopamine. So that one's kind of a
Yeah.
big one I like to talk about, because basically your body builds a tolerance to dopamine, and it gets less pleasure out of life. Out
I
of
wondered if that's what you were gonna say. Like, you need
Yes,
more then, do you? You need
exactly.
more to get anything out of it because it's
So
right.
people who use porn often, they typically will need more and more hardcore porn to get the same effect.
So it escalates as well. It's not that just you don't just need more, you have to find something different that's going to
It's
excite those receptors.
Yes, because it's the novelty of porn that is
Aha.
exciting. Because it's you
Well,
can have a different woman or man every
yeah.
single time, 10 times in an hour.
Right.
And it's the novelty of doing something new that your brain says, oh, I haven't seen that before. There's an extra
Yeah.
source of dopamine. So then the down regulation of that dopamine causes, your brain isn't going to release as much dopamine when you do
Uh-huh.
fun things like hugging your family or your loved ones, doing exercising, doing things you're supposed to enjoy
Yeah.
out of life, the things that really matter out of life. The amount of dopamine release is going to be lowered because of this chronic use.
Absolutely. I can see how that would happen. And then things that I guess are, for lack of a better word, normal, which is
Mhm.
spending time with your family and your friends and doing your job the way that you're supposed to be doing, or just doing things that are supposed to be enjoyable to you. I can
Right.
see how they might become mundane then because you're constantly seeking a new thrill. Um, Wow. I've actually seen television programs, where people are addicted to thrill seeking and things like that. So I guess their brain must work in a similar way because you see them escalating the activities that they're taking part in, getting more and more life threatening and dangerous
Mhm.
as you go along. And
Yeah.
I guess this is the same kind of thing. And I can definitely see how erectile dysfunction and premature ejaculation could be an issue because of what you're exposing yourself to.
Right. Erectile
So
dysfunction alone is just taken off for men under 40 and men under 50, which really
wow,
shouldn't be. It really
that's
shouldn't be.
crazy. Yeah.
Um, Apart from like a heart condition or a blood vessel condition, you shouldn't really have erectile dysfunction. And
Yeah.
people are doing that because they are used to a certain amount of a stimuli threshold, and their partner can't
Yeah.
provide that, or
It's just
the
not
novelty,
exciting enough.
right? The novelty
Right.
of doing something. And then
Yeah.
along with that, having your partner try to mimic what you see in porn, like you
Ooh.
mentioned, that's a slippery slope, and
I was
that
gonna
can
say that seems really dangerous ground. Yeah.
oh, yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah. And how demeaning to your partner that the only way that you can get excited with your partner is if they are mimicking something that you've seen in a fantasy land. It's not real.
right, yeah.
Um, Porn in particular has really evolved as well.
Mhm.
Like I mean, I'm 41. So back when I was a kid and you were sneaking looks at your dad's porn, it was magazines.
Right.
I mean, that's the porn I was exposed to. So,
And it was
you know,
just
and
topless
we knew that
women.
was bad.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, just centerfolds and all that kind of thing. The neighbor and I would, sneak into the shed and go, "Oh, look at the dirty magazines, looking at old boobs and stuff." So, you know,
Right.
but that's where it ended. I didn't
Yes.
go on to find more after that. And back when I was growing up, I guess the only way that you could see real life action porn was on a VHS videotape, which a lot of people who are listening may not even know what that is.
Right.
Um, so VHS videotapes or whatever it would be, or the magazines. Now though, there is I mean streaming. You can pretty much get anything you want to on demand at any time. But I've noticed people talking just in there have been some social chatters about VR porn. And I
Yeah.
can only imagine that that has got to be risky.
Yes. So there's a couple of different VR porns. You have like virtual reality in interacting with somebody else,
Right.
but they also have AIs. And
Oh.
yeah, and I've heard some arguments like, so porn does overlap with the sex trafficking, sex trade, obviously.
Oh, wow. Mhm.
And so I've heard some arguments that, using AI and computer images that will help reduce sex slavery. And like, well, you're not wrong there, but it's also not right either.
Is that
And
really the medium that you need to be using in order to try and yeah, okay.
yeah. So, oh yeah. So the I don't know enough about the VR porn on how that's going.
Sure.
It's going to step it up a next level. Your brain's
Of
going to
course.
really think that's real. Like that.
I've used
That's
VR before,
yeah.
not for porn, but, I've used VR before, and it's pretty amazing. It is an assault on the senses, and that's just playing a really basic free game,
Yeah.
that you get when you buy the VR headset, and as everybody can see, if you're listening, you won't be able to see, but I wear glasses, so a
Mhm.
VR headset does not sit very well on my head, and
Right.
without my glasses, I can't see. So for me, VR is not the way of the
Right.
future, unless they come up with something that I can use it without a headset. But um, it is an assault on the senses. Absolutely. Can I ask you, Isaiah,
Mhm.
what got you into this line of work? Were you already a nurse? Were you working in a particular way and then decided that you saw an opening to help people? What is it that led you to this?
Yeah, good question. So I was an emergency room nurse, ICU nurse, kind of floated between the two. And our hospital I worked at had a psych unit with a dual diagnosis center, meaning that psych, but also addiction, because they kind of go
Okay.
hand in hand.
Yeah.
Most people with psych issues have addiction issues, and vice versa.
Mhm.
Uh, so as an ER nurse, 90% of my colleagues are female. So um, a little bit of stereotyping, Isaiah, you take the rough patients because I'm a guy
Ah,
who can handle it,
yeah,
which
right. Mm.
I don't mind. I really don't mind the addicted patient. So in the US, we have a huge heroin epidemic,
Mm.
and it's getting a little bit better. But back, 5 years ago, it was. I mean, it's one of the leading causes of death now.
Wow.
So that's what I would see often in the emergency room is heroin addiction,
Mhm.
heroin overdoses. So once I finished the schooling for nurse practitioner, I was kind of deciding what I want to do. Since I had an ER background, I kind of wanted to do trauma because I enjoy that. But then I
Mhm.
realized that as a nurse practitioner, I'm not a physician. So as a trauma specialist, I wouldn't be doing the fun stuff the doctors would.
Uh,
So I was like, I don't want to work weekends just to not do the fun
yeah.
stuff. So, um, and then a job came up with addiction, and I was like, at first I was like, oh no, I don't want to do that. And then the more I
Mm.
thought about it, I was like, you know what? I kind of like those patients. Like I remember I'm in the ER, and I enjoyed empathizing with them, knowing that I'm just a handful of bad decisions away from being on the other side of this. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
right.
better than you, and I hate that the society has marginalized them and so looked
Oh, for
down
sure.
upon them.
Yeah.
And I just think it's unfair. And so I took the job, and I've never looked back. I've enjoyed it. I like what I do.
Awesome. We have that problem here in Australia as well. I don't know the statistics, but I know that there is a huge issue, meth addiction, to the
Yeah.
point where they have TV commercials now,
Oh,
about driving while you're on meth if you're high, and the commercials that they have on the TV are graphic. I mean, it has to be something to hit home with some of the people who are having these issues. But we do have the same problem that you guys are having, that people who are addicted, they've made bad choices, they've made decisions that have led them to this place,
right,
and they are treated like second class, not even second class citizens.
right,
They're denigrated, they're stomped down, and they're sort of swept under the carpet. They're the dirty little secret,
right,
instead of getting help. And then the government disguises help in the form of things like methadone programs and things like that, but actually that's where it ends.
right.
There's a methadone program.
Yeah,
We've introduced the methadone program for heroin addicts, or for people who are addicted, and and the heroin is not the only addiction that methadone is for. I believe it's for pain, or opioid addiction, I believe is what they actually say that
yeah,
methadone is for.
yeah.
And but those people are seen as scum.
Oh yeah.
They're not scum. Some of those people have high powered jobs. It's just that they made bad decisions. So that isn't the same though for someone who is addicted to porn, because I didn't even know that there were people who were in that boat.
So that's the interesting thing, because the average age of exposure to pornography in the U.S. is 11 years old.
I can relate to that.
Your
Mm,
kids, your
yeah.
children, your
Yeah.
brain isn't even fully developed to
That's
see.
right.
And it's
Yeah.
not like looking at boobies on your dad's dirty
Yeah.
mag. This
Yeah.
is hardcore,
Yeah.
crazy porn at 11 years old. And
Yeah, that's
by
bad.
14, 94% of the kids will watch porn by 14.
Wow. Sorry, I
So
have a mosquito. I just in case anybody could see my hand flapping around, and I thought I am listening to you, but I can see the mosquito. It's flying in front of my face, and I just don't want to be bitten. I apologize, Isaiah. Go on.
So with like heroin addicts, like I said before, I'm only a handful of bad decisions away from being them. With
Yeah.
porn, it's not even the case. You could
No.
be 11, 10, 11, 12, not even looking for porn and stumble upon it and be like,
Mm,
oh, well, that's kind of cool. I've never seen boobies before. And then before
right.
you know,
Yeah.
you're down there. Or your neighbor kid exposes you, which is very common, and then you don't even have a chance because the amount of
Mm,
dopamine released at that just washes over your brain, and that's all a person can think about.
yeah.
And then you have unlimited access to it all the time. And as
Exactly. Yeah.
as a teenager, who wouldn't want that, right?
That's
And that's
right.
exactly what teenagers live for. And
Yeah.
then
And what teenager doesn't have a phone now that they could just access that? They have internet access all the time, or
right,
computers and stuff.
and
Yeah.
then and then the shame that goes around with it, like then the anxiety. Will my parents catch me?
Ah.
and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's like just so many problems that you and I really didn't have just wrapped
No.
around one subject alone. So then by the time they're 22, 25, they've seen thousands of hours of porn.
Holy
Now what?
cow. Mm,
Now how are they going to function in a relationship? How are they going to stop?
yeah.
And so then a lot of the teenagers will get their sexual education off of porn.
Oh,
Like
wow.
whether it's a girl, like how do I
That's the
please my,
worst.
yes, exactly, the
Yeah.
worst. So
Yeah.
a lot of stories like a girl wants to, has the best boyfriend, they think they're in love. They're like, okay, well, he wants to do this. I need to learn how to do it. And like
Uh-huh.
that's setting someone up to be abused, sexually
Yeah, for
abused, or
sure.
coerced or intimidated into sex. Like Those
Yeah.
are all things we need to get away from.
It gives you a really bad platform. It's a terrible foundation to
Yes.
think that that is what relationships are, what you're seeing in those movies or whatever it is that you're watching. If you think that that's real
Right.
and you're not being told any different, you're not being taught any different, that is a terrible foundation. I can see how that can lead to some extreme issues.
Yes. Absolutely.
What does what does your job have to do with helping people who are specifically not the meth and heroin and whatever,
Right.
because we've just talked about that, the methadone program and other rehabilitation programs. How does somebody get rehabbed for porn addiction?
Yeah. So the gold standard has always been therapy, which I
Okay.
support. I love therapy. That's
Yeah.
exactly what we need to do. Cognitive behavioral therapy makes it uses uh, different avenues to help change the way you think, help
Mm.
identify these faulty thinkings. So that's a great standard of care, cognitive behavioral therapy. You can search YouTube, CBT for addiction, CBT for
Yeah.
porn
Yeah.
addiction. Another one is motivational interviewing, which I really like motivational interviewing. It's a type of therapy that basically goes, if you really, really good motivational therapists, motivational interviewing therapists who will basically challenge your views. Like, do you think um, aggression towards a woman is right? Well, no, I don't.
Mm.
Well, then why
Mm.
are you watching this porn? And
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a good way to like really straighten out your thoughts. So, like I said, therapy is the gold standard. So, about 3 or 4 years ago, I was doing a lot of alcohol addiction, weight loss addiction, using medication naltrexone, which works well. And then I kept having
What did
about
you
four
call it? Sorry.
naltrexone,
Oh, okay.
Naltrexone. Naltrexone. It could be different in Australia. They have different.
Possibly. Yeah.
Google it. You'll be able to find it.
I will.
And I've had a handful of guys that I'm not taking it for alcohol anymore. I'm not taking it. I'm using it for porn. It keeps me away from porn. And I was like, no way. And I thought, thinking
Wow.
like, that's pretty brave for somebody to say because there's so much shame involved. How many guys
Mm.
are you, I'm prescribing it to that are using it for porn and not telling me because there's no.
Right.
So then I started looking up medical research, and there's been a lot of studies done that naltrexone medication does help control pornography cravings. And then I started looking up
Mm.
another medication, citalopram, or really any SSRI antidepressant
I've
will,
actually heard of that one, yeah.
yeah. So what it does is it reduces anxiety. So like I
Mm.
said, there's a lot of anxiety around, am I going to get caught? Or just with anything, taking away your coping mechanism, there's going to be
Yeah.
anxiety. So
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
one reason the SSRIs help. And then the other reason is it causes sexual dysfunction. It reduces your thought
Okay.
process, reduces your desire to have sex.
Yeah.
So oftentimes I would say for people who are single, the SSRI route is a pretty decent option. It
And a
reduces
lot
your
of them do that though, Isaiah, don't they? The SSRIs are renowned for causing
absolutely.
sexual dysfunction.
Yeah.
Um, but if I may,
Mhm.
normally if your doctor is prescribing an SSRI, I'm talking about my personal experience, it's generally that you're going to be on it forever.
Yeah, good question. So standard of care is at least 1 year, or is at least six
Okay.
months. At least 6 months after the symptoms resolve is what's recommended.
Yeah.
So it might take you a year to get out of your depression or anxiety, and then stay on it for another 6 months before.
Okay. That's interesting actually. Yeah, because I myself have had anxiety, depression issues in the past. Mine is from post traumatic stress disorder, but I chose not to go down the antidepressant route
Sure.
only because the doctor was kind of saying, well, when you're on them, you just kind of have to be on them forever, And I
And
was just like,
most
oh, I don't
people.
want to be taking a pill every day for that. Yeah.
So yeah, SSRIs are great, but if your depression or anxiety isn't caused by a chemical imbalance, it has a less
Mm.
rate of success. So,
Yeah, right.
but yeah, so back to the naltrexone, I found that naltrexone how it works is it, one, makes a person less impulsive overall.
Mm.
Two, it helps to reduce intrusive thoughts about porn. And
Hmm.
then three, one of the biggest aspects is it limits the endorphin release from external stimuli.
Right.
So then the next follow up question I always get is, well, is it going to limit the dopamine release from having sex or from
Right.
exercising or hugging my family?
Or just having fun. Yeah, I actually was thinking that myself.
Right. Yeah, yeah. So short answer is no, because it only reduces endorphin release from external stimuli. So we do use
Okay.
it as a weight loss medication as well, because that comfort food, people use food as a comfort.
Yeah, as a
And
comfort.
it
Yeah.
helps to calm them down. That sugary food or high fatty food, high salty food calms them down. It releases endorphins. So it helps
Mm.
to reduce that as well. But having sex is considered an endogenous endorphin release because it's coming from inside the body.
Oh, okay. Hmm.
But porn isn't. So
Yeah.
anytime you know you're going to go to a porn site, you open up that laptop, already your brain's starting to release dopamine. It's the
Oh, just the anticipation of what you're
absolutely, it's
about
that
to do.
Pavlovian response that
Yeah.
okay, my wife left for the day. I'm good. Like I'm already starting to get that
Wow.
high.
Oh gosh.
So that
Mm.
that naltrexone will help to stop it before it helps it makes it easier to stop it because
It
that
doesn't even get to
snowball.
that point then. Yeah.
Right. So that snowball starts, and then by the time you're clicking on that porn site, it's already going too fast. You can't stop it.
Mm.
Before that little angel on your shoulder says, you shouldn't be doing this," it's already done. So the naltrexone
Yeah.
comes on
Yeah.
board and helps to reduce that. So that way, when that little voice does say, "Okay, is this really how you want to spend your time? Is this really going to be productive for you?" You're able to have a clear enough brain, not flooded with dopamine, to say, "This isn't really what I want to do. This isn't
Mm.
going to get me to where I want to go." So,
Mm.
so talked to a colleague of mine about a year ago, and we started a telemedicine company in the U.S. called NoX, no-x.net. And we
Hmm.
provide those two medications, naltrexone or citalopram. If you're allergic to citalopram, we can do sertraline as well. And it's telemedicine to all 50 states, and it's most people. You can go to your doctor for it. Great. I
Mm.
won't be mad at you. I'm not doing this to make a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
But who's going to go to their doctor and say, "I have a porn addiction"?
I can just imagine there's not many.
And then what doctors are going to say, "Okay, here, I heard this naltrexone works.
Yeah. Yeah.
I stumbled upon it by
Yeah.
accident." And I was like, you know what? And then what really motivated me to do this is I have 4 daughters. And then I'm thinking, like, how in the world are my daughters going to find a husband who hasn't been exposed to porn?
Mm.
And
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
that's impossible. And then,
Yeah.
like, I don't want my daughters to have to live up to that standard or all of that mess that comes with it. I don't even want to go.
Yeah,
I don't want to think
I
about
get it.
it.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, I have to do something about it. And then at the same time I was thinking about this, I was stumbling upon this research. I was like, there needs to be something, at least for the more extreme addicts. Like most
Mm.
people, you're right, they can stop porn. Or just like with alcohol. Most people
Hmm.
enjoy alcohol and can stop. But
Yeah.
there's a certain percentage who can't. And the same
Yeah.
thing with porn. Certain percentage you just can't. And at least let's start with them. Let's start helping them. The people whose wife is going to divorce them if they don't stop porn.
Right.
Or
I
porn
mean,
is
that's extreme, right?
yeah,
That has to be, if you are in that situation, you've got to be thinking that is extreme.
right.
If someone's willing to leave you because all you're doing is watching porn and God knows what else you're doing at the same time. Because that is the idea. You're not doing it just for watching. You're getting something out of it. So that is an extreme case, I would say. And I'm thinking that people who are not coming to you are the people who are casually
Right.
partaking in something that's interesting to them, and maybe doing it because I know that a lot of sex therapists encourage the use of that as a tool to help them. Like I've heard that. I don't agree with it
And then
necessarily,
there's
but
a little bit of like, yeah,
yeah. I
so
don't necessarily agree with it, but hey, you know what? If it's going to help someone with their problem and it doesn't turn into an addiction, I can see how that may be helpful. So the people who are coming to you are not the people who are doing this one off, once every few months they might see something, or once every couple of years, or whatever. These people are looking at this stuff every day, multiple times of the day, and the only way that they are able to get through the day is by exposing themselves to this material. Can I ask you, because I'm sorry, you said about alcoholism, um, are these the same people? Like, are people who are prone to being addicted to one thing in particular, are they also prone to being addicted to something else? Or could it be, say myself, I don't drink alcohol, I don't take any drugs, I don't drink coffee, I don't drink soda except for my mineral water. Um, I've never been addicted to porn, but is there a possibility that I could be?
yeah, if certain things align. So there was about 20 years ago, there was a theory about an addictive personality, and
Right.
you've
I've
heard
heard
that.
of that. Yeah, yeah.
That's kind of been disproven. So, and
Okay.
it goes to genetics, and there's a genetic component to alcoholism. So how
Right.
it works is, you and I, same height, same weight, same age, same everything. You drink a beer, get a buzz like this. I drink a beer, get a buzz like this. Well, who's likely to drink again? This guy.
Yeah, of
The
course.
genetics says they metabolize alcohol in a way that releases more dopamine. So
Right.
then that person's more likely to drink. So
Mhm.
then, as far as porn goes, yes and no, but also, what are your circumstances like? Were you exposed at 11 years old? And did
Mm.
you use that as a coping mechanism throughout your teens? Were you,
No.
did you experience trauma?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now this is your comfort. So there's
Yeah.
a lot of external stimuli to it as well.
Okay. Okay. So I guess because that was a thought that came into my head, and I'd like to put myself in the seat of the listener, that maybe they're listening to this and they're thinking, Jesus, what are these two talking about? I've never, I haven't had a drink in my life. I'm not going to get addicted to drink. I'm definitely not going to get addicted to porn, especially because you said 91% of men. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, I've watched
That
porn in
means
life.
I know at least seven other people who are addicted to porn, and I don't even know it.
Yeah. No, so those are 91% of people have watched porn
Oh,
in the
watched
last
it.
30
Excuse me.
years.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Right,
So
right, right. Okay.
about half of that number have tried to quit sometime in their life and has failed. So,
Oh.
so and even you mentioned earlier, like the people we treat are the people who use it every day, all day, every day. Like that's
Mm.
true. We do that, but we also treat the people who tried to quit and failed, and they
Yeah, I
go
guess they're
a
yeah.
month with no porn, and then they go on a week of binge, and then they go 3 months
Aha.
without porn, and then they go on a week binge, and
Right.
then they go a 1 week off, 1 week on, and they just hate themselves, the shame and the guilt and the hypocrisy. So we
Mm.
treat a lot of people with in the religious sectors, not just Christianity, but other religions as well. Because I don't know of a religion that is okay with porn.
Mm-mm.
Every
Mm.
religion I know of frowns upon it, or
Yeah.
specifically says no, don't do this.
Well, we as a society should probably be frowning upon it.
I
It's
mean, so
a
society,
billion industry that's just exploiting people, and I have a real problem with it actually. So yeah.
absolutely. So
Yeah.
then the shame and the hypocrisy. If you're active in your church or mosque or whatever, and you're secretly looking at porn on Saturday night and then going to church Sunday, like
Oh, imagine the shame. Yeah.
the shame, the guilt, the hypocrisy. You may only be
Mm.
watching porn once a month, or once a week, and it's ruining your life because of the burden you're carrying around, and you can't stop for whatever reason. Medication might be
Mm.
an option for you. And medication obviously isn't right for everyone, and I'm not
No,
going to stick
sure.
it in. But if it's gotten to the point where you've tried and failed, and it's obviously disrupting your life, whether it be your faith or your marriage or your
Mhm.
kids, like imagine
Yeah.
what would happen if your kids walked in on you? Like,
Oh, imagine. Yeah. You'd
yeah,
be in jail. It's funny, actually. I'm a law student, which everybody now, I'm sure they're all rolling their eyes because I seem to find a way. I not find a way on purpose, but there are things that I have been exposed to doing this podcast, and I think, oh, we've talked about something like that. And there was a case recently, actually, where there was a guy who was watching pornography and a child walked into the room. He was house sitting and the children were there, so he was babysitting at the same time. And this girl was maybe 12 or 13 years old, and she walked into the room while he was watching pornography. Now, in the shortened version of the story is he actually got charged with some sexual offenses. He was basically registered as a sex offender because this child walked in, and then she told her mother, of course, that she walked into the room. He immediately turned it off. So the case notes say he immediately turned it off as soon as she walked in. He didn't try anything. That wasn't what he was about. It was just he was having some downtime, I guess. But look at what it did to this guy's life. 3 years in prison, registered as a sex offender for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And he didn't do anything to her. He didn't intend to do anything to her. The child saw it. And in Australia, that is an offense as bad as doing something with a minor.
Yeah. But at the same time, how bad was this guy's habit that he had to do it while he's
that we don't know. That was a part of the case. Isaiah, don't ask questions like that.
Yeah. Yeah, So there's a lot of different ways you can get in trouble. Child porn, all that kind of stuff. So
well, that too. I mean, then we're going into a deep dark. I've done criminal law, so I've seen some of the. Well, I'm sorry, but those people are degenerates. If that's what's getting you off is children, we have an issue. Right away, we have an issue. It's bad enough that some of the women are over the age of majority. But when you're talking about minors, then we have a real issue. Yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, is porn a gateway to that? Because nobody starts out with child porn.
Possibly, I don't know. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Who gets on and says, I'm going to start looking at child porn? Well, no, they start with regular porn and they get more extreme, more extreme, more extreme.
More extreme, yeah. Oh, wow. God. Okay. So people can get in touch with you, no X, so it's no-x.net.
Yes.
And so what is the procedure? Because I can imagine that if someone is going to be listening to this and they say, well, actually, I can identify with some of the stuff that you guys are talking about. How do they go about starting the process, and what should they be expecting? Because I can hardly imagine that people are going to want to be written down on paper, and we never know what's going on with someone,
And that's exactly why we started this company, because we don't take insurance. So insurance in the U.S. is kind of crazy. So you go to your family doctor and everything you wrote and you use your insurance, the insurance company has access to everything. And then anytime you apply for life insurance or anything like that, they can see. So that's kind of the reason why we said, you know what, let's make it anonymous as much as we can, because we can't have complete anonymity, but as much as we can, so that way it's not in your family doctor's permanent record that you watch porn. So, thus we don't take insurance, but go to the website. You can look at a lot of the frequently asked questions. You can look at the medications. We have the links to the FDA label because they are FDA approved. And then you just click sign up. You have to fill out probably a 25 question questionnaire. We do a depression screening, a pornography screening, and then your generic health record, surgeries, medicines you had. Then you check out. And then you have to create an account, like an online portal, and that's how the physician will communicate to you. And depending on what state you're in, some states require a telephone call, some states require a video call, some states just require the doctor or nurse practitioner to look at your chart and then approve the script. So depending on where you're at, it can go either way. If you want to call, if you say, I do have questions about this, you can put that in there. Say, I request a phone call from a physician, and they'll call you. answer any questions. The actual phone call is just 2-3 minutes. That's about it. And because
Okay.
by the time people call like requesting, obviously you have a problem enough to reach out for help. So
You're looking for it. Yeah.
right. So we don't necessarily have to ask a whole lot of questions. We know you want help. We basically
Hmm.
have to say, is this medicine going to harm you? And
Yeah. Yeah.
if you have like certain disorders, like a bleeding disorder, you may not be a good candidate. If you had a recent suicide attempt, you may not be a good candidate for an
Well,
antidepressant.
yeah, you're talking about the SSRIs and stuff because some of the side effects are suicidal thoughts, and anyone who's ever watched any TV in the US, which I have, of course, knows. You just have to look at the ads and they'll tell you what the side effects are. But I can imagine.
Yeah.
Um,
The
and
actual phone
so,
call is real quick, and then we
yeah,
ship it directly to your house in a discreet package.
okay,
So it doesn't go on your family doctor's record.
that's
It's
good.
pretty anonymous as it can be.
At least that's a start anyway. It's a start to getting help. If you feel like you're needing help, and you're listening and you're saying, actually, I can identify with some of the things that you're talking about. You maybe need to look inward a little bit, and at least this is a place that you can go to. Now, it's worth mentioning because I did talk to you about this before we started. The NoX website is not available outside of the United States.
Yes. Yeah.
Obviously, there's a reason for that. So I know that we have a huge listenership in the United States. So I hope that it can reach someone. But if you happen to be listening in Australia or in Europe, New Zealand, etc., the website is not available to you. It's geo blocked. um, don't try and use a VPN to go around that because you will not ship to people outside of the United States.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I might try to do you yourself know of any resources outside the US, or I can have a quick look around and maybe put some resources on the show notes here?
So you can just write the medications down, naltrexone
Hmm.
or an SSRI. We chose
Okay.
citalopram because it has the lowest side effect profile.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
so write those two medications down and talk to your doctor. Say, hey, if you don't want to mention porn, you can go with the SSRI and depression. And
Yeah. Yeah.
naltrexone is used off label for weight loss. And so if you
Oh,
say, you
okay. That's
know
interesting.
what, I heard this real medication helps with weight loss. Your doctor's willing to prescribe it to you. Great, you can go that route.
Yeah, that's good. I just wanted to mention that. Yeah. What about Canada? Is it the same thing? You don't
Yeah,
deal with Canada?
we don't ship to Canada. Maybe eventually, well, hopefully, we can get to Canada, Mexico, and beyond. But
Okay.
um, as of now, we don't. Therapy obviously is the gold standard. Even if
Yeah.
you are taking medicine, you have to get into therapy anyway.
Yes.
It's where the real change happens. So,
Yeah.
but in addition to that, I do want to just mention one other thing that NoX wants to do eventually.
Mhm.
Is make it more difficult for children to access porn. So,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
as a nurse, I try to get the Under Armour nurses discount. This is like five
Uh-huh.
percent or something like that. So I have to go to a identify website. It's called ID.me. I have to enter my
Okay.
driver's license. I have to enter my nurse's license, my address, my name, everything, and then I get this
Mhm.
special code that I can take to their website. So why can't we use something like that for porn sites to
Was
protect
there
our
not something like that in the past? Was
the countries that are in Europe has that. I
yeah.
forget which
Oh,
one,
okay.
but the U.S. doesn't, and that's for
Uh,
as far as I know. Canada, Australia doesn't. All you do is have to
I
click.
don't know.
Are you
Yeah.
18? Yes or no? Yes.
Oh, is that
And
all you have to do?
that's all you have to do. Are you
Oh, and
18?
see, in here, I thought you have to put your credit card in. It's probably good that I think that. I don't want to put my credit card into some website like that. But I remember back in the day, like I said, back in the day, we had dial-up modems, all of that kind of thing, and our porn was pictures. It wasn't videos. It wasn't the stuff that these kids literally are being exposed to now. But even back then, I thought that there was something where you had to do that, like an age verification type service, but obviously they've done away with whatever that was that I looked at.
No, you just have to click yes. I'm over 18. That's it.
And who's going to say no?
Right. Right.
Really,
You're
if that's
there
what
for
you're
a reason.
looking for. Yeah, who's going to say no to that? It's worth mentioning that if you are in Australia in particular, as I said, that website is not available. If you are experiencing any sort of trauma, if you are feeling suicidal, we've touched on quite a few topics here, and it is a requirement that we mentioned that Lifeline is available. Call 131114. That's 131114. They are available 24/7, and it doesn't matter why you're calling. You could be calling for any reason at all. So if you've listened to this episode and you're feeling down, you're feeling like you need some help, look at the show notes, see if there's any information there. I'll try to update it as I can. If you're in the United States, get in touch with Isaiah. No X with a dash in the middle. I'll put a link to that because that's it sounds funny trying to say it no X with a dash .net, but there are places to go. It's important. Is this a new thing, Isaiah? Like, do you know of any other services like what you have?
I don't know of any other service like this. There are
No.
some inpatient pornography,
Okay.
sex addiction clinics that
Okay.
they'd fly you out and you'll stay there for a week or 30 days. But in home
Okay.
anonymous service, I don't know of any.
No. Well, I guess probably a reason for that. There's probably a reason. It sounds great though, and I'm glad that there's this service available for people. And it doesn't matter. You have mentioned a few times, that people may be of a certain faith, or they may be struggling in certain ways. Obviously, you said the gold standard is counseling, therapy. If you feel comfortable, reach out. Do you guys have like a lifeline over there? Is there anything like that, a telephone counseling service?
We have, if you are feeling suicidal, you call 911, and that's the
Okay.
emergency. When paramedics out there get you into a mental hospital. You also have like a 211 number, and that will help. It's
Okay.
not a non-emergent number, but
Non-emergency. Yeah.
it'll help find resources for you.
Okay.
If you're stuck, you don't know where to turn to, call 211, and they'll be able
Mhm.
to direct you. Yeah.
But otherwise, have a conversation with someone, get a trusted friend. And again, in Australia, 131114 is the number for Lifeline. Isaiah, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. I really thank you for coming on and talking with us because, like I said, it's not a topic that people talk about often. And I think that has to change too. There's there's a shift that needs to happen where talking about these things is all right. That actually, just before we go, do you think that that has a lot to do with it too? There's a
Oh,
stigma
yeah.
that people don't talk about this because of the stigma?
Right. Who wants to be known
Yeah.
as the perv who watches porn?
The
That's
perv, yeah.
right. No.
Yeah. Not that I would never call someone that if I knew that that was happening, I would never say that to somebody, but I can see why someone would think that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what society says.
Is that a nature nurture type thing, do you think? Is it a societal thing maybe?
Yeah, I think just society is frowned upon it. We know, I mean,
Yeah.
like you said, you grew up knowing pornography is degrading. We know that.
Yeah.
But at the
Yeah.
same time, there's something titillating about it.
Yeah, that's right. We also knew it was wrong to be we were not allowed to be looking at those magazines.
Right. But it was still fun.
Playboy has been around for years and years. But yeah, that was what my friend and I from next door did. That was our let's quickly go to the shed and have a look. I think he was more interested in it than I was. I'm gay. And I reckon I probably knew that even back then, 11, 12 years old. I probably knew that and probably wasn't looking so much at the boobs. But anyway, but I think he was much more interested because um, that's something I think that's really important. Sometimes you don't even know that you're getting into that mindset. If somebody is actually introducing you to this stuff, like we talked about the kids, if it's their friends that are saying, hey, look at this, there's peer pressure to get involved in that kind of thing. So it pays to maybe look at what your kids are looking at, if you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially at 8, 9, 10, you know they're going
Oh
to be
yeah.
exposed. Give them the vocabulary to know, like, this is what pornography is naked people
Mm,
typically having sex. So when you see it,
yeah.
call it what it is. This is pornography. I should not be looking at it. and then give your
Mm.
kids the freedom to tell you about it. Say, hey, I was
Yeah.
exposed, saw pornography at Jim Bob's house. And
Yeah.
parents
And
don't,
without shame.
yes, without shame. And then the parents
Yeah.
don't freak out. Don't call Jim Bob's mommy
Yeah.
and like
Oh
this
God. Yeah.
make it an open conversation. Like, I'm sorry that you were exposed to that. How is that
Yeah.
making you feel? And just kind of talk through it. Realize
That's
these
right.
are actors and actresses. It isn't real. Just like
It's
when you
not
see a movie and
reality.
someone
Yeah.
gets killed in the movie, they're not really dead. And
Mm,
just
mm.
talk to them and give them the vocabulary. If the parents can't say penis and vagina without giggling, how are the kids
What's
going?
that about? Actually, yeah, what is that about? Because I've had this discussion with someone else before and they didn't know the answer, but they are the medical terms for those body parts, penis and vagina. They are not dirty words. Stop teaching your kids that they are dirty words. They're not dirty words. They are the anatomical they are the anatomical body parts. And that is the other thing. I think that parents, when they're talking to their kids, have to let go of their own bias, their own stigma, their own shame. And it is definitely a family conversation. Where would you suggest, now obviously a parent is who's not addicted to porn, but if their kids are coming home and they need to be having this conversation, how can parents arm themselves with the correct information apart from it's wrong and it's not reality? Can they get support anywhere, do you think?
So for the younger kids, there's a pretty neat book called Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. And this is
Uh-huh.
for kids anywhere from 5 to 9, maybe 8, 9. And it talks about what pornography is in a language that's appropriate for the younger kids.
Hmm.
And as you get older, 9, 10 plus, you just lay it out the way it is. This is what our society says. And
Mm.
even like some commercials, you just help your kids identify when they see sex ads. Like, do you see how they're trying to sell that with sex appeal? Like that
Yeah.
person's not wearing
Yeah.
a whole lot of clothes, and they like, what do you
Oh
think
yeah.
about that? This is how I
We're
feel about it.
bombarded by that
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think about it? And then as parents, do you change the channel when there's a sex scene on TV? And do your kids
Mm.
watch you change
That's
the
so
channel?
funny. I do.
Yeah. It's like,
I don't have children. I actually find sex really uncomfortable. It's now I'm coming across as a little bit of a prude. I would like to say I'm not a prude. I do enjoy sex, of course I do, but I don't need to see it all the time. And I find that we are bombarded by it in the media. It makes me extremely uncomfortable. I actually don't even like seeing people kissing. um Public displays of affection make me very uncomfortable. And even I don't, now I really have a prude. It must be that 40-year-old thing. But but like seeing it on TV, I just think, oh, it absolutely adds nothing to the story. There's sometimes gratuitous sex scenes on the TV and it adds nothing to the storyline. Why does it have to be there? What value is it adding to it? And our kids are being exposed to it because they have access to Netflix and Hulu and all of these things that there's no policing it. Because yes, you can set it up as a kid's account, I suppose, but they'll just click someone else's name.
yeah, yeah,
There's no getting them away from it. And if they're not getting it at home, they're getting it at school. Someone else is showing it to, they're getting it from somewhere.
right. They're going to be exposed. We need to equip them to.
Mm,
You can't shelter them. And if you successfully shelter them until they're 18, then what? They're going to go
yeah,
off the.
that's right.
So just give
Yeah.
them the tools they need. Help them identify. Tell them what you feel about this. What are your feelings on the sexy scenes and the porn
Mm,
in
mm.
general? Like, why is that wrong to you? And then
Yeah.
children will typically adopt your same views typically, and if not, help them think of their own, and that's okay if they think
Mm.
different. But
Well,
it's
that's true. Yeah. It's important to raise people who are, children who are growing up to be individuals and have their own mind and whatever. That's all good. But of course, instilling good values is always
yeah,
paramount.
absolutely,
Yeah, for sure. Isaiah, thank you so much. It has been an absolute pleasure. I know what is it now, about 9 o'clock in the morning for you?
yeah.
Time to get on with your day.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Isaiah Cruz. Everybody, have a look at the show notes. Head on over if you're in the US. And once more, please contact somebody if you need to speak to someone. 13 11 14 is the number for Lifeline. Thanks, Isaiah.